Thank you very much, gentlemen. 1-1 in the series now. TSM bringing it back. And they made some adjustments. They made some serious adjustments. So let's work through some of those adjustments starting in Champion Select. We saw them drop one of their bans to throw the Kindred out, and then the Graves as an early pick, and securing Poppy in the top lane.
Exactly. They pinched the jungle champion pool, and they made sure that they had the last really heavily aggressive jungler in the meta, so that Scarra would have a good matchup that he could have control over. And I also love the Lulu pick. I think the Lulu pick enabled a lot of this, and the double TP along with it was just going to be the answer that they had to whatever CLG was going to last pick and counter pick with in case they got 1-3-1 or split pushed.
Yeah, I think the double TP was a big thing. Their adaptation, the first game, they got slammed by double TP, so they're just like, as soon as, it actually was funny because CLG picked Corki as a final pick, and I thought that that was just okay, as long as they were able to get past the double TP pressure, but they weren't able to. Bot lane got repeatedly dove, top lane got turned with a TP, and it seemed that they couldn't handle the double TP early.
I know going through Champions Select, you were looking for CLG to pick TF as that final pick. Why is that?
I thought that TF was a good answer to Lulu. Like you see it before in the SKT games where they pick TF to be able to pressure side lanes. I think that fits really, really well with CLG stylistically and can catch up to the Lulu TP as well. I think that it just, TF brings a lot of pressure into the game, and I hope that it becomes a priority pick in this series, because I expect it to.
Yeah, and Azale, we saw that TP come into play very early on, securing 3-for-1 early in the game, but then also to the Lulu, what it did for the TSM's teamfight potential. I know that in the first game, you preferred CLG's teamfighting comp, and here in the second game, I believe TSM came out on top in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the really big things in the first game was that the Kindred was always kind of this like ticking time bomb, outscaling the Nidalee in the team fighting. And CLG in game 1 had a much stronger team fight. In game 2, bot lane got, let's be honest, smashed. And then what happens is your AD is so behind in terms of item pacing to their tanks. So it's like, how is a Caitlyn who's super far behind going to be able to punch through a Poppy who's supported by this, fed Lulu? So there's so much AP in these shields, and the front line was so strong, their team is so durable that 6A was never able to really kind of like put out enough damage. And you have Xmithie on a fully support jungle Rek'Sai with Sightstone and Tabby's full tank, right? They just didn't have the damage to actually take down TSM. So even in these team fights where it started out looking really good, they just don't have enough damage to finish it.
And I think that's a lot of what the meta is right now, because you have these tank top laners. They're going to be able to do their job pretty much no matter what. They're all going to get to those 2.5 core items. Even if they don't, they're still incredibly tanky and have the utility. So if you camp the AD carry, well, the game gets blown wide open because they don't hit their item spikes on time. They're drastically outscaled by the other AD carry, and then they can't even get through the tanks or that front line as quickly. So I think that camping the bottom lane is pretty much the best strategy right now that you can have, and I think double TP is something we should see on both sides from this point onward.
But the thing is, I think that CLG is a really good answer to that. They're really well known for their lane swaps, and I think if they just lane swap away, they don't need to have a laning phase where double TP even comes into effect. They just trade the 2 outer towers, and they're able to skip the laning phase and get Caitlyn to the point where she hits mid-game with a decent amount of items. If she falls behind when she's in mid-game, you're right, she can't punch through tanks at all. But like you saw the first game, if she can reach her 3-4 item core, tanks are nothing to her, because her long range outranges everything that the other team can throw at her.
Yeah, she has to get to that point, though, and that's the thing is, Doublelift and Yellow Star, they seem to be way more on the same page coming into playoffs, that they want those 2-on-2s. They want to be able to go head-to-head with you, and even in the Kalista matchup versus the Caitlyn, he was able to get a CS lead early despite being pressured under his turret, and was able to actually come out with a little bit of the lead from the laning phase, and we saw Stixay pretty much win Doublelift his 2 items, sitting on just rapid-fire cannon.
Now, in general, TSM looked very comfortable in the standard lanes. I mean, Hanser able to TP multiple times out of the lane without getting into too much of a deficit CS-wise. Azale, I know you had some criticisms for CLG in the fact that Darshan wasn't able to punish that harder if he wasn't going to follow the TPs.
I will, and I mean, compliments to Hanser as well. I just felt like he controlled the waves better than Darshan did this game. And when you're a top laner and your opponent is TPing away multiple times throughout the game, and you're basically still just tied on CS and not able to get anything done with your TP, that's really huge. And I think that Hanser deserves a lot of credit that game, even though it's a subtle thing. Not falling behind when you're playing for the team and not using the TP for a lane is really impressive. So he did a really good job.
All right, so we've talked a lot about the individuals on the team. Now let's get into some of the team fighting itself. Let's bring up our replay. It's the second to last fight in the game, the one that secures them the mid inhib before they drop back to the Baron. Zyrene, I'm going to pull this up on the screen and have you walk us through it here. But it starts with a CLG catch, so things actually look to be in favor of CLG.
Well, Stixay is already half HP, and it looks like a really good fight here, and Hanser gets into the middle.
I love the ult backwards.
Ult backwards because he wants to be able to have actions again, and he doesn't need to throw it at them because he doesn't want to knock anybody back because they're all so low. He wants to pick up those kills, and it rightfully so. It was the correct move at that point after he'd started charging the ultimate up.
But I think this is where it supports your point in terms of the durability of the champions, because it looks so good for CLG. You get a binding onto the Lulu, she's half health, so this is their ticket, this is their indicator to go in, and yet everything gets turned around.
Exactly, he's got just so many abilities to keep himself safe.
Especially with the Lulu, if you can't pop the Lulu right at the start of the fight off like that, it doesn't matter if she's not putting out damage anymore. She can be sitting in the back and shielding people, and the ratios are so good on those shields that it's like she's adding so much. So you instantly kill her and she adds nothing, or she's adding thousands of effective HP throughout the fight with the wild growth, with the shields, not to mention Whimsy for speed ups is like invaluable as well.
All right, any final thoughts on that second game there, Scarra?
I just think TSM had the right answer. I think they're
Proper adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely. Their adjustment to game 2 was really good, and I'm interested to see how CLG adjusted to game 3.
All right, well, yeah, both teams have a little bit more time to adjust before game 3. We're headed for a break, but when we come back, we'll see which of these two teams takes a lead in this finals matchup. We're back in just 3.5.
Yeah.
What the?
That's how it was on. That's how it was on stage. It was like ridiculous.
Wait, I couldn't hear you guys?
I had to scream. I had to stick and scream.
Yeah, I was wondering why you guys were screaming.
With the top players fighting back and forth, and here comes the TPN Lulu on the top side here. The flash Q, one more hit will do it, and Bjergsen with the flashing and getting it 2-for-1 TSM.
We can win.
Yeah.
I'm on Caitlyn.
Echo ulted. I'm ulted, Kevin.
Okay. Chase. Give me speed. I don't have. I have a slow though. I have a slow though.
Q and 3.
Nice.
And the re-engage comes in, Bjergsen. It's 2 kills so far. Make that a third as who he goes down. And nothing for expecting a 4-for-0.
TSM takes it to 1-1.